Good evening and welcome to KTN Prime on this 22nd day of November 2012. My name is Eric Lassie.
And I'm Edith Kimani, this evening bringing you all the details of the dilemma that faces the National Police Service Commission with regards to the people that they have shortlisted for the position of Inspector General and the two deputies.
Well, some four of them may think that they are off the hook yet, but now it's not going to be smooth sailing as some civil society organizations are out with guns blazing. We'll be telling you more about that. And today, the cabinet as well has met and they've discussed the situation in Baragoi, in Mandera and Nisli. We'll be telling you more about that. Let's first of all take a look at the highlights. Top cop dilemma, activists reject police nominees.
Casting the net wide, 3 arrested over Isili blast.
How do you form an alliance with Kalonzo? His value proposition politically is zero.
Shying away low turnout at recruitment.
We visit a special culture in Western Province.
And like we said, we begin tonight with a fresh row of a list of nominees to the Police Service Commission, the head of the police service. Civil society organizations have rejected the list released yesterday, questioning the integrity of 2 candidates nominated for the position of Inspector General.
Well, it has also emerged that the President and Prime Minister could face a whole new dilemma over gender and regional balance in naming the police chief. KTN's Anso Mwendia begins our news coverage with that story.
The civil society groups say the commission made a big mistake in nominating some of the candidates for the top jobs in the force. They want an investigation into the role played by 2 nominees, David Kimayo and Grace Kaindi, during the 2007-2008 post-election violence. The NGOs raised even more damning questions about CID Director Ndegwa Muhoro, who was shortlisted as a candidate for Deputy Inspector General in charge of the Kenya Police.
Did the commission investigate his alleged role in the stolen DRC gold that President Kabila came to look for, contempt of court accusations and drug dealing?
Concerns raised against Samuel Arachi relate to accusation of ethnic favoritism and corruption that emerged during the interviews.
Given the time that the interviews concluded and the time the list was released, I do not think the Commission had ample time to investigate, particularly the specific complaints that came from members of the public.
Apart from integrity concerns, regional and gender balance, as outlined in the Constitution, will likely be the next big headache in the appointment of the first police IG and 2 deputies. And here is that delicate balancing act. The Constitution requires that of the 3 positions being sought, at least 1 must be either gender and positions must be distributed regionally. That means if the top candidate, David Kimayo, is picked, regional balance concerns may lock out Judy Jebet Ndenda, who comes from the same community as Kimayo and who has been shortlisted for the Deputy IG position. This technically makes it very difficult for Kimayo to be picked, since his nomination automatically locks out Kaindi and, on regional considerations, Ndenda. In the second scenario, if John Ochieng is picked, the principals may be under pressure to pick Judy Ndenda as his deputy to balance gender, locking out the 2 men competing for the Deputy IG regular police position. In the third scenario, if Grace Kaindi is nominated for the top job, Ndenda would still stand a chance of being picked her deputy, giving women 2/3 of the positions, provided the remaining slot goes to a man. The question of regional and gender balance isn't just a legal issue. It is highly political. It is political to the extent that the powers that be would not want to nominate a police inspector general who would antagonize them and their interests. And that Parliament will have a say in the nomination of the next police IG means that there are many other interests that will have to be taken care of. Remember the parliamentary debate during the deliberations on the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commissioners. Every Kenyan now knows that in this House, Parliament, almost anything is possible. So we can only wait to see who will be the next top police officers. Ansu Mwendia, KTN, Nairobi.
Well, and that ball is rolling from the Kavuludi Commission to Harambee House, where the President and the Prime Minister will have to meet and decide and crack their brains around it. But then, the allegations by the civil society are the topic of our big question tonight. We're asking you, do you think these nominees for the Police Inspector General and the two deputies have passed the credibility test? Do you think these nominees passed the credibility test? We'd love to know what you think. The number is 8040. Please send us your yes or no plus a brief comment to that number. We'll be giving you the poll result at the end of this live newscast.
Still on matters of the police, but now the National Police Service Commission has recruited over 7,000 police trainees to enforce the regular and administration police. The countrywide drive for the first time took place in a single day and in a new format. But as KTN's Asha Mwilu reports, the exercise was marred by a low turnout and complaints on the new enrollment format.
The first ever police recruitment drive under the National Police Service Commission kicked off Thursday. However, for most of the 286 centers set aside countrywide for this exercise, the turnout was pretty low. This center in specific City Stadium, which is known to attract so many men and women seeking to join the uniformed forces, saw only a handful turning up. Recruitment centers in other parts of the country reported similar challenges. In Nyeri and Naivasha, the enrollment of the police trainees drew few applicants, leaving more questions on what may have gone wrong.
Unajua ni hiyo tu mambo ya Al-Shabaab. Sasa watu wengine wanaogopa juu ya hii kisa ya Al-Shabaab kuingia Kenya hivi.
Pengine hali ilivyokuwa kule Bargoi ndio imeshawatia vijana baridi ama vipi, lakini hata hivyo idadi ambayo inahitajika katika wilaya yetu itapatikana.
Others argue that the low numbers could perhaps be attributed to the new requirements and procedures for the recruitment of the 7,000 police trainees. For instance, this year, recruits had to apply for the positions before the recruitment drive. What's more, the minimum academic requirement was pushed up to a minimum grade of C plain, up from D plain. This new requirement proved to be a headache for some regions such as the coast, with recruitment officers having to adjust the grade requirement.
Tatizo ni kuwa watu wengi masomo yao iko chini.
Tulilazimika pia kuangalia pia wale walikuwa na C- ili tuweze kupata nambari ambayo tulikuwa tunahitaji.
The service, however, gave a minor reprieve to older applicants who in previous years would be locked out of the recruitment. The age bracket for recruits was increased to between 18 and 28 years for KCSE holders and 30 years for those with specialized skills.
D for dog.
Under this new layout, the recruitment was conducted in one day across all centers countrywide. Those shortlisted were informed of their progress on the same day, as opposed to having to wait 3 days for a letter from Vigilance House. This, the Commission says, will eliminate corruption and nepotism in the recruitment exercise. This recruitment drive comes against the backdrop of rising insecurity across the country, with Police Commissioner Matthew Itere acknowledging that there is a huge deficit of uniformed men and women, making law enforcement extremely challenging. The National Police Service Commission hopes to fill 4,000 vacancies for regular police constables and 3,000 for administration police. Asha Mwilu, KTN, Nairobi.
Asha Mwilu, winding down on that story, bringing us pictures that are very unfamiliar when it comes to police recruitments, especially at the Coast Province.
Yes, indeed, and it's quite sad to see that the people who had the grades that were required did not turn up.
Indeed.
And the recruitment officers had to go for people who had lower grades just to meet the threshold. Well, let's move on from there. And in Nairobi, police have arrested 3 suspects in connection with the Sunday blast in the city's Eastleigh estate. The 3 are believed to have been behind the delivery of the explosive that led to the death of 8 people.
Prime Minister Raila Odinga, who today visited the scene of the explosion, condemned the attack and said that the government would deal with those who were behind it. Wilkis Tanyabwa has more.
Police believe the 3 suspects in police custody were recruited and trained by those behind the Eastleigh blast that claimed 8 lives last Sunday. Detectives are now on the lookout for the mastermind of the blast, an individual they believe the suspects in their custody shall lead them to.
We have 3 people already with us as suspects, and we are now interrogating them in view of, maybe getting more information of what is happening and who are the people behind, so that we can see we can arrest the primary suspect.
According to the police, the improvised explosive device used in Sunday's attack was assembled locally and delivered by persons who may have been recruited and trained for that very purpose.
The people we have already arrested, you find that in one way or the other, there's some ignorance in that. Meaning, these are probably people who are just trained, hastily, so quickly, and they are given a mission. Meaning, there are those ones who plan. They organize, train, and facilitate.
Prime Minister Raila Odinga, who was away at the time of the blast, has condemned the attack and the violence that followed it.
Tunataka kulaani vikali vitendo ya unyama ya majambazi kuja kurusha guruneti hapa. Ndio mzee, ndio mzee. Hiyo haiwezi kuvumiliwa. Ndio mzee. Hiyo ni Al-Shabaab. Ndio mzee. Hiyo ni nani? Hatuwezi kukubali.
The Prime Minister visited the scene of the attack in Isili, where he warned that the government would deal decisively with the perpetrators of the violence. This even as the police urged for caution amid continuing threats of fresh attacks. Wilkis Anyabwa, KTN Prime.
From Isli, let's move over to Garissa. And President Mwai Kibaki has approved the establishment of an inquiry into the killings of security officials and the subsequent destruction of property in Garissa and Baragoi. One more person was killed today in Garissa, bringing the number of those killed so far to 5. KTN's Eric Joka is in Garissa and reports on how it all began and the aftermath of the mayhem.
So this is where it all began. A few minutes to midday, 3 officers check into this garage here with a punctured tire. They've come here to replace that tire. A few moments later, gunshots are heard. People are scampering for safety. The officers are shot dead. One of them, we are told, was lying there. The second one, we are told, was lying around this place. And the third one was lying next to this canvas that was left by the military. A clear indication that they were here. We are also told by the mechanics who work around here that when the gunshots were heard from that direction over there, the 2 men who they saw ran off towards that direction. What followed was violence on the streets. This is Kismayo Road, which as of Monday and Tuesday was literally impassable. Clearly evident are these stores over here which were razed down by fire and by said arsonists. The government now is raising a red flag and sending a clear warning to the sympathizers of the 2-day riots.
They actually want to penetrate the government system by getting recruited into the police force. What we want to assure the country is that after the exercise, all those who are successful will be subjected to thorough scrutiny.
Souk Mugdi Market in the middle of Garissa town was among those set on fire. This forced residents to escalate into rage, some of them claiming to have suffered huge losses, as you can see around me. At the time the violence began, students were still sitting for their KCSE examinations. Unfortunately, 2 students were shot and rushed to the Garissa Provincial Hospital, where they're still undergoing treatment. What is happening right now is that schools have been closed. They are under lock and key, as you can see here. What is rightfully going on is that the IEBC is still conducting the voter registration exercise. Unfortunately, people are not coming in or going out during this exercise. Remember, this is the biggest polling station in Garissa town. So business is back. People are right back on the streets, as you can see, and the situation in Garissa has gone down. So as we leave Garissa town, we have only one hope, that peace prevails. I'm Eric Njoka reporting for KTN, Garissa.
Eric Njoka giving us the very last details from Garissa in the most interesting way. And he has mentioned the IEBC and people not turning up. Well, amid growing security concerns in the country, analysts are now raising questions about the preparedness of the police service to handle any election-related unrest. Internal Security Minister Kato Olemetito is warning that police are currently plagued by an acute shortage of vehicles, making it difficult for them to respond to rising crime. But the minister, who spoke to KTN's Noah Otieno, insists that there is no cause for alarm.
The Internal Security Minister says the biggest challenge to the provision of adequate security during the elections is poor mobility of the security agents.
If you look at the Ramsley report, that is the one that decided the issue of police reforms, that report says that what police require in terms of vehicles, they only have a third of it. But it goes on to say what they have in terms of vehicles, which is a third of what they deserve. It also goes to say only a third is serviceable. So you really are left to wonder, how do they respond to these insecurity issues or instances as quick as they are required to do.
Metito told Parliament on Wednesday that he needs at least 40,000 vehicles purely for officers on the ground. With the police handling robbery cases, murders and riots, the police now also have the added challenge of dealing with terror attacks suspected to be mounted by sympathizers of the Somalia-based Al-Shabaab. The question is whether they will still have the capacity to man the 2013 general election.
At least for that exercise, the 90,000 required by IEBC, we can provide. But that will really stretch the police service, because that will not be the only exercise going on that day in the country.
There are no official statistics, and the authorities are not willing to give out the figures, but conservative estimates put the combined total of regular administration, police, and the general service unit at just about 80,000 officers.
You provide them armored vehicles, you take those vehicles to a place like Sukuta Valley. Work, instead of sending 100 officers, you just send 10 with those armored vehicles. So they need armored vehicles. They also need aircraft, modern aircraft. And if you provide them with modern armored aircrafts, we will not be seeking any help from the military.
Just over 3 months to the March election, the Internal Security Minister says the police are also facing the challenge of dealing with political incitement, which usually leads to violence during the elections. The security agencies struggled to keep the country together in 2007, but now the pressure on them is greater because the country is headed to yet another general election where the biggest fear is a return to that same kind of chaos. Noah Otieno, KTN in Nairobi.
Many challenges there for Kenya's security forces, and that security situation is threatening the ongoing voter registration exercise in some parts of the country. But in West Pokot County, one woman is braving the odds to get her name on that all-important list.
Well, she is 30-year-old Anjabet, and she's living with disability, but she's just as ready to make her voice heard. KTN's North Rift reporter Masi Kandie has that story of inspiration and indeed determination.
One hope has been keeping her going for as long as she can remember. The hope that after every 5 years her voice can be heard through the ballot box. 35-year-old Anchebet was born without any hands and only one leg.
Nikakaa mamangu akanishika. Hata kaambia unashika mtu kama hiyo. Sindo ungetupa tu hiyo mtu ama ungenyonge.
When she was in class 5, she gave birth to a son.
Sasa ukiona hiyo mtoto, sasa ameosha na amepaka mafuta. Alikuwa so strong.
The man who impregnated her disowned her. Though her entire life has been full of challenges, she jealously guards her right to participate in choosing the next president.
Sasa kumbe hao nayo walemavu ako na akili ya kupika kura. Sasa atakuwa maajabu au kuona sasa.
She has participated in previous general elections. She tells me her only limb voted in her preferred leader. And so today, the tune does not change. Chebet makes a trip to the voter registration center in Chepareria Center, West Pokot County, waits in line. And finally, without fingerprints, it's only her picture that is taken.
Sasa kwa watu wenye ni disabled, wenye wana mikono kabisa, unaweza register, una double click kwa the fingers. Double click inaandika tu missing. Alafu mwenye labda kwa bandage, una click once. Ukiclick once inaandika bandage. Sasa itakuwa accepted kwa computer. Sasa ni hivyo ndo nafanya. Tuko msemo mwenye maybe one hand is missing, una double click kwa the fingers. Itaonyesha mkono ni missing. Then you'll be asked mbona, the reasons. Sasa unaandika. Ukiandika maybe msee alipata accident. Si unaandika tu ni accident, then kwa accepted hivyo. So to disabled unafaa pia kuja kuregister kwa sababu there's a way wenye watakuwa wanaweza kuwa registered.
Chebet becomes the second person with a disability to be registered today at the center. Though the biometric voter registration seems to put emphasis on capturing fingerprints electronically, those without hands or the injured are also catered for.
Sasa nimefurahi sana, tutatafuta kiongozi yetu sasa kupiga kura.
What she did not know about the new process, now she knows, waiting to cast her vote in March 4th next year.
It is clearly your right to have a voice and vote for your preferred leader regardless of your physical ability. Marcy Kandi reporting for KTN at Chepareria Voter Registration Center in the county of West Pokot.
Well, congratulations to Anne Jebet for braving the long queues and registering herself to vote in next year's election. Have you done the same? Today is day 4, 30 minus 4, 26. Make sure you keep the count. Now, let's bring you up to date with the politics. And it's emerging that the day-old Kalonzo Mudavadi alliance may rope in other smaller political parties ahead of the December 4th deadline. The two are, however, yet to fine-tune details of their new union, as observers see it as an attempt to have the so-called third force. KTN's Aaron Ochieng now takes a closer look at the new alliance and its impact on the presidential succession equation.
3 months to the general election, political deal-making appears to be the alternative to political campaigns, as politicians seek to craft alliances ahead of the election. A possible deal between UDF's Musalia Mudavadi and Wiper Party's Kalonzo Musyoka is attracting attention, with its architects branding it an alternative third force in the race to State House. The two were on Wednesday meeting at the Serena Hotel with teams of advisors to craft a possible pre-election agreement. Should there be a deal between Musalia and Kalonzo, then the race to succeed President Kibaki will slowly have taken shape. The two other forces comprise of a pact between Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto and another of ODM's Raila Odinga. The deal between Kalonzo and Musalia has remained distant, as both leaders vowed not to play second fiddle in any arrangement. Over the weekend, Kalonzo campaigned in Mudavadi's turf of Western Kenya, where he vowed to go all the way.
Ikiwa President Kibaki ambaye nimekuwa makamu wake miaka 5 anastaafu, yeye kwanza hatajipigia kura, ngawaje alichukua kura jana, si ndio? Nitaenda nimuombe anipigie yake.
Their political formation between Mudavadi and Kalonzo remains unclear. There is no agreement yet on who would be the presidential candidate and who would settle for running mate. Both have scored relatively low in recent opinion polls, but none seems to be willing to back down for the other.
Naomba kura yenu, kwa sababu ninaweza kusimama hapa na nisiombe, lakini leo naomba kura ya president.
Mheshimiwa Mudavadi, wakati utafika State House kama rais, hakikisha kwamba unachunga Kibaki in retirement, unachunga Raila in retirement, alafu Ruto, Mheshimiwa Ruto na Uhuru, Mheshimiwa Mudavadi, uhakikisha kwamba they face justice, real justice.
Analysts say the newfound friendship between Kalonzo and Musalia is based on a dawning of a reality that they are no longer in the arithmetics of Uhuru TNA and William Ruto's URP in the face-off with ODM's Raila Odinga.
There never was a G7. G7 was the pigment of the imagination and the illusions of a few politicians who like to be cheated, like Alonso Musyoka and Eugene Wamalwa. They like to be cheated that it will happen. There never was a G7.
Although details of the Wednesday evening agreement between Kalonzo and Mudavadi remain scanty, sources say it could also involve several other parties and presidential aspirants to counter Raila's popularity and Uhuru Ruto alliance.
In any case, why would you form an alliance with Kalonzo? His value proposition politically is zero. There's absolutely nothing that he'll bring to you. He becomes a liability in that respect.
Members of Parliament allied to Wiper Democratic Party and UDF are yet to meet to deliberate on the newfound alliance and how it will possibly offer a winning formula come March 2013. Aaron Ochen, KTN.
Now, the vicious wrangles between the two teachers' unions, NAT and KUPPET, has taken a new twist, with KUPPET now threatening to take its older rival to court. KUPPET is accusing NAT of using what it's calling underhand methods to poach its members. KTN's Angel Katusi reports on the development and the developing conflict that could endanger negotiations for teachers' new salaries.
A day after the all-out battle in Kisii, the Young Teachers Union, KUPPET, is now threatening to go to court if NAT continues poaching its membership.
15 years down the line, you can never wish KUPPET away by all standards, because the law protects the existence of KUPPET. You cannot tell them that if you assemble them in a hotel, you can organize a mock defection, and they accept.
The consultative committee is supposed to comprise 5 representatives from the unions, but according to KUPPET, NAT has 4 of the 5 positions. KUPPET has been demanding equal representation, but NAT remains adamant, even threatening to boycott the ongoing teachers' salaries negotiations if its representation is tampered with.
We are aware that one of the things which have not made the negotiation proceed is the protest from KNUT.
If one union feels that they cannot negotiate, the government does not pay unions, it pays workers.
Even as the dispute continues, the two unions have a December 31st deadline to present a formula for implementing teachers' salaries and allowances to the Salaries and Remuneration Commission. KUPPET now says it will ignore what it calls petty actions by NAT and still work to beat the deadline. NAT, on its part, accuses KUPPET of being used by the government to undermine teachers' welfare. Angel Katusi, KTN Prime.
In Kisumu, pomp and color marked the second day of the Western Circuit Cultural Festival. The organizers, Lake Victoria Tourism Association, brought together communities that live in the western side of the country to showcase their culture in a bid to boost tourism in the region. Well, KTN's Fredo Mulo reports from the lakeside city.
The fiesta is the first of its kind and aims at being a platform for cultural exposition and the promotion of tourism in the Western Circuit. It brings together exhibitors from the Kuria, Kisii, Luo, Kalenjin and Luo communities that occupy Nyanza, Western and North Rift regions.
We are now encouraging on homestay. The problem now we are having, we are talking to the people about houses which they are not using and they are staying in Nairobi. We can make use those ones to accommodate the tourists.
In the month of December also, we might have a traditional food fair. We'll also have another a cultural, though a small cultural dinner just before Christmas, together with Rural Tourism Network.
The festival draws to a close on Saturday at Kisumu's Impala Sanctuary, where participants will hold a boat race in Lake Victoria. The Luo ceremony of Cheroburu is performed after burial to cleanse the homestead of the evil spirits that cause death. With the recent spike in insecurity in Kisumu and subsequent improvements, this may well be the best way of improving the situation in the region ahead of the tourism high season. From Kisumu City, I am Fredo Mulo.
Let's cross our borders now, and tension is high in the Democratic Republic of Congo's town of Goma after M23 rebels rejected a plea by regional leaders to withdraw from the town. The rebels, who threatened to capture more territory, have vowed to stay put until the DRC President Joseph Kabila sees ground and agrees to negotiate with them. The standoff has led to massive displacement of people from the town. Rwanda and Uganda have been accused by the Congolese government of being behind the rebel groups due to their alleged interest in the natural resources and minerals that are present in the forest of Goma. However, the rebel groups have denied being backed by the two countries. At a breakfast meeting today, the Premier also assured the governments of Southern Sudan and Kenya that his government is fully committed to the completion of the LAPSET project. Philip Keitani attended the meeting and filed this report.
Currently, the balance of trade between Kenya and Ethiopia stands at $56.4 million in favor of Kenya, with Ethiopia to Kenya at a paltry $4.3 million, something the new Ethiopian Prime Minister is not happy about. However, Kenya is hoping that this status will remain the same and wants to fast-track the implementation of the special status agreement that is expected to deepen trade and investment flows between the two countries.
We appreciate the commitment expressed by the government of Ethiopia in contributing to the realization of peace in the Indian Ocean waters.
If the government has to give incentives, the government should have its own hand certain banking sectors. Otherwise, this is how the Asians has developed. But our Western friends, they told us to privatize everything.
Apart from cementing Ethiopia's relations with Kenya, the Ethiopian Prime Minister also gave his government's commitment to the development of the economic and transport corridor, the LAPSET project connecting Kenya, Ethiopia, and Southern Sudan. As part of his mission to Kenya, the Prime Minister also visited mobile operator Safaricom, where he called for partnership in growing the two nations.
We don't ask them to bring a new factory. What we do is just ask them to dismantle their existing factory and come in, establish in Africa. So this way we can quickly bring investment to Africa at this moment.
The Premier also visited Brookside Dairies Limited as he sought Kenyan businesses for partnership. Brookside has in the past indicated its desire to expand across the East African markets as a leading dairy product supplier. Philip Keitani for KTN Business Today.
The Cabinet has approved the National Social Security Fund Bill, popularly NSSF Bill. The bill, which seeks to transform the giant pensions fund into a public mandatory social security scheme, will now head to Parliament for debate. The highlights of this bill include proposals to increase monthly contributions by employees to the fund to 12%, as well as stiff penalties for employers who fail to remit the contributions. While the fund has over the last 4 months carried out campaigns to seek support for this bill, the Retirement Benefits Authority recently raised concerns over the same bill. On the other hand, the Central Organization of Trade Unions, COTU, has been a vocal supporter of the bill, arguing that it will compel the haves and have-nots in the society to participate in Social Security. Aircraft manufacturing firm Embraer says it's on course to establishing an aircraft repair and maintenance base in Kenya. According to the firm's president and CEO, Paulo Cesar Silva, this will enable its growing clients in Africa to receive after-sales services locally.
The African aviation industry has been on a growth path over the last few years. This has seen a number of airlines in the continent expand, attracting more business from aircraft manufacturers across the globe, among them Boeing, Airbus, Bombardier and Brazilian-based Embraer.
We see here in Africa market growing at a rate of 6% per year, Africa as a whole, right? And when we look at the numbers and the dynamic of the market, together with the fact that many routes are flown with aircraft that is bigger than it should be, right? So we see a huge potential for us.
However, to beat competition, Embraer, which says it now serves airlines in more than 9 countries in the continent, plans to set up a repair and maintenance base locally, plans it has had for some time.
We will continue with this plan. And definitely Nairobi is one of the places to be. So we have a very large customer here, right, Kenya, and we will move forward in our plans. It's a matter to implement and now to have authorization in place for the service center So this may happen until, I would say, maybe June, July next year.
Nairobi is a natural choice for the firm as it does big business with the national carrier Kenya Airways already. The airline received the 900 E-Jet Embraer aircraft recently as part of its fleet modernization. With the base expected mid-next year, this can only assure Kenya of more jobs opportunities in the growing aviation industry. Joseph Bonyo, KTN Business Today.
And now let's have a roundup of other news that made business headlines today.
Just run through the program of how we will.
The East African Tea Trade Association is livid over plans to introduce the tea ad valorem levy, which would raise the cost of shipping tea. Currently pegged at 1%, the association says this needs to be reduced to 0.25% to ensure the trade remains favorable. But the Tea Board of Kenya has downplayed the association's concerns, saying the proceeds from the controversial levy on exports will boost the subsector's fortunes. Tea is a key foreign exchange earner for the country, having raked in 109 billion shillings last year. And finally, the KCB Group has partnered with pay TV company MultiChoice, offering customers better deals on purchasing MultiChoice products. KCB Advantage and credit card customers can enjoy up to 100% discounts on decoders by simply signing up for longer-term subscriptions. The offer will be available to the 6 countries where KCB operates, which MultiChoice expects will enable it gain more customers.
And now let's take a look at how the shilling performed today at the forex market and also how shares were trading at the Securities Exchange.
Financial Report is brought to you by SNAP.
SNAP, a subsidiary of NCCK, is inviting you to share in its success and growth. Share price is an amazing 11 shillings.
We begin with some vulnerable news as the Kenyan Prison Service is tonight in celebrations after the men's and women's teams recaptured the national volleyball title. They relinquished the GSU and the Kenya Pipeline last year. The women's team beat rivals Kenya Pipeline by 3 sets, while their men's team locked out the dreaded GSU in Kasarani earlier this evening. Victor Gale with the report.
The General Service Unit volleyball team made their intentions known early in the final playoff match against rivals Kenya Prisons. Using their Thunderbolt spikes and tight blocking, the dreaded GSU men took the lead going into the first technical timeout. GSU took hold of the first set to win a 26-24 and followed it up with a 25-19 victory in the second. Prison then turned the tide on the Thika Road base side in the third set, beating them 26-24. The Warders sensed victory and were more forceful in their attack and defense, and it paid off as they won the fourth, 25-20. The heat on GSU was too much to bear, and it also poured to the fans as they involved each other in a scuffle that caused the game to be stopped for close to 10 minutes. Other restart Prisons dominated and managed a 15-12 win with players Bernard Musumba and Ibrahim Odora as the best players.
Pia seti ya kwanza tulienda vizuri, lakini makosa tu ilipatikana hapo kwa 23 to 25 ndio wakashinda. So wakati tulienda upande ile, tuli maintain the same spirit na vijana walikuwa na moyo.
Earlier on, Prisons beat arch rivals Pipeline in straight sets of 25-17, 25-15 and 25-19 to achieve their third straight victory in the 4-team playoff.
We've played very well the whole season. We've not lost a single match.
in league and in tournaments. We played a total of 55 matches and won all the 55.
Both teams were awarded with a trophy and a cash reward of 50,000 shillings, with the runners-up receiving a ball and a net over and above the ticket to represent Kenya during the African Club Championships next year. The Kenya women's volleyball team has managed to reclaim what once belonged to them 1 year ago, and for now the reigning African champions are focusing on representing the continent in the Volleyball World Cup. Victor Ogale, KTN Kasarani, Indoor Arena, Nairobi.
From volleyball now to matters soccer. Gor Mahia's Ugandan import Dan Serenkuma scooped the Tusker Premier League 2012 Player of the Year award as Gor Mahia won most of the trophies at the gala last night. Coach Zdravko Lagarusic, who plucked Gor Mahia from obscurity to the second place, was named the Coach of the Year. Hassan Juma attended the gala and files the following report.
There was pomp and color at the black and white tie function at the Safari Park Hotel during Kenya Premier League's Football of the Year Award Gala. After a long, tough and tedious 2012 Tusker Premier League season, it was time for the players, coaches, team managers and all those who made the season a success to reap fruits of their sweat.
2012 winner is you, Danny Serenkuma.
Dan Serenkuma. Ugandan import Dan Serenkuma with 17 goals to his name was the biggest win of the night, as he was crowned the Player of the Year, and he was elated for beating a host of players with the biggest gong.
I feel happy because they have recognized my individual work I do, and then I feel happy because I'm a foreigner. I think it's a sign for another foreigner that they can make it in Kenya.
Sofapaka's firepower engine John Baraza received the Golden Boot Award. This is the third time Baraza is winning this category.
Is Anthony Akum Gor Mahia.
Lanky Gor Mahia midfielder Anthony Akum was voted the midfield of the year, beating Thika United's Francis Kahata and KCB's Paul Kiongera. Another Ugandan import from the Green Army stable, Ivan Anguyo, was the best defender of the 2012 season.
Ivan Anguyo, your winner for Kenya Premier League Defender of the Year in 2012.
John Baraza bagged a second in the night, the Fair Play Award, beating Dan Serenkuma and Obadia Ndege of Tusker.
He will be winning. There is your fairest player, John Baraza.
Gor Mahia's Croatian coach Zdravko Lagarusic came tops for plucking Gor Mahia out of obscurity to second place. He was however non-committal on his stay at Kogalo, but promised that if he remains, Gor Mahia will represent the country better and leave a mark in the Continental Championships.
Coach of the Year.
I would love it.
If everything will be alright, if I stay in Gor Mahia, Gor Mahia will represent Kenya properly. Must be properly.
Gor Mahia was the biggest beneficiary of the night as the curtains came down on an illustrious but fruitful 2012 season. Reporting for KTN Sports Today, I'm Hassan Juma.
Thank you, Hassan Juma, and congratulations to all the winners. Moving on to matters tennis, Kenya's Ismail Changao and Nikita Dauda have booked the semi-final tickets at the 2012 ITF Junior Circuit in Mombasa. Nikita, whose Egyptian opponent retired in the first set during the quarterfinals on Wednesday, will now play Natsumi Okamoto, the fourth-seeded player from Japan. Okamoto defeated Elena Mashtakov 6-1, 3-6 and 7-6 to advance. Changao stopped Harris George from South Africa 6-1, 4-6 and 6-3 to reach the semi-finals, where he will play Isaac Stout of Great Britain. Stout defeated Migliano Francesco 6-4 and 6-1 in the quarterfinals. And back to our boys now. Harambee Stars team captained by Anthony Kimani arrived in Kampala, Uganda ahead of this Saturday's Sekafa Senior Challenge Cup kickoff. Kenya's Senior Challenge team is being coached by James Nandwa. The Stars had light training session in the evening and are expected to fill the match venue in Amboli Stadium. Kenya last won the Senior Challenge Cup in 2002, and though Nandwa did not get the best players for such a tournament, he promises to reach the semi-finals. Kenya starts a campaign against host and defending champions Uganda at the first match of this year's campaign. Monters Rugby now. The travelling squad to the second and third legs of the IRB Sevens Rugby Series is a mixture of experience, fresh blood and talent put together by coach Mike Friday. Veterans Lavin Sego and Sydney Shaw will be out to boost the Bright Sevens team, which caused a star in the first leg of the series in Gold Coast, Australia. The team will again be captained by Andrew Amonde in the Dubai and Port Elizabeth. Players making their first international duty in the team are Oscar Ayodi and Fabian Orlando, who will start in Port Elizabeth. South Africa fitness levels for Kayange is still in doubt, and the former captain is unavailable for selection this time round, contrary to the earlier reports. Kenya will take on Scotland in the first game in Dubai and later try to stop the stubborn Fiji, who won the Gold Coast Main Cup. The team will leave Nairobi on Sunday.
Will make his debut in Dubai, and then Fabian Orlando and Oscar Oyendo will make their debuts in Port Elizabeth. All three have been fantastic. Their work ethic has been exceptional.
And that's all for KTN Sports today. And once again, Chelsea fans, Cloutenburg has been cleared and John Obi Mikel charged. I'm Nicholas Mudimba. Have yourself a great night.
Nothing rewards like a Guinness. Guinness, reach for greatness.
Right, we're just about to wind up, and on our big question this evening, we had asked you if you think the nominees for Police Inspector General and the two deputies pass the credibility test. Well, the poll results are in, and it's a tie, 50-50. That's exactly how you polled this evening.
Well, this just shows you how this is going to look like in Parliament.